Hello, everyone, and welcome to IBTM Meets, a series of interviews with leading figures and experts in our industry. My name is Laura Jensen, the IBTM Content and Community Executive, and I'm delighted to be joined here today by Roxy Nucu and Chantal Kerr-Sheppard, co-founders of the Circular Event Experience, who are here to talk to us today on Earth Day about sustainability and what we can do as an industry to support worldwide sustainability goals. So hi, Chantal and Roxy, it's great to have you here today. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us. Hello.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, both of you. So why don't we start off a bit just with a bit of a overarching look at the industry. So what do you guys think is the current kind of status of sustainability in the events industry?
Sure. So it feels like everyone's feeling the push to do things differently, and sustainability is increasingly becoming front of mind for many people when planning events. And we're seeing many sustainability initiatives being developed from various communities being built to event consultants solely focusing on sustainability. But it also feels like things are moving slow, and this is obviously partly due to the global pandemic that we've all just experienced, but also due to all of these activities and new initiatives being developed in a bit of a silo, which I'm not sure is the best approach, because if we need to create significant progress, we need systemic industry change, and we need to all start looking at events with a sustainability first lens throughout the whole planning process.
Absolutely.
And then practically, I think it's incredibly overwhelming. You've already got so much to do as an event professional, and the event planning process is so complex. It's really easy to feel like you won't be able to make a difference, and goodness knows where to start either. But we can't let that paralyse us in inaction. Sustainability is now essential. It's not optional. But always the best place to start is to just start. And a lot of agencies are already doing that now. So they're on a path to take small steps, looking at what they can do within their control, who you can influence, be that clients or suppliers, and what you can do now before moving on to what else you could be doing.
Absolutely. And you, Roxy, you mentioned briefly the global pandemic. Do you think the opinion of sustainability has changed at all due to COVID, whether that's travel or actually organising events?
Yeah, definitely. So our point of view is that there's probably two sides to this. And some of us have been afforded the time to reflect and learn, whilst others have been pushed into a bit of a survival mode, not knowing where the next paycheck may be coming from. And the people and agencies in this camp have a very different focus, and you've got to forgive them if sustainability isn't top of their priority list. And for them, it's about the short-term survival, getting work, any work, and getting back to where they were financially, hoping they can forge a future after such a catastrophic past year. And whilst those in more vulnerable positions might have not had much of a chance to consider sustainability, I think for the majority of us, COVID was a bit of an awakening. You know, seeing a whole industry stop and start so many times makes everyone feel vulnerable and reflect more on the impact of natural disasters and the impact of infectious diseases on the industry's future, but also our future as the whole humanity. And not just that, but it also allowed us more time to appreciate what's important in life, you know, the small pleasures, which often included reconnecting with nature. So my answer is definitely yes to your question whether sustainability status has changed due to COVID. I think our relationship with sustainability has changed, and COVID's really brought us closer.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, so you mentioned a little bit about sustainability obviously not being a priority for those event planners who are working on a survival instinct, but in terms of event planners who may be looking to increase their sustainable kind of behaviour, what do you think are those key challenges that might be facing them at the moment?
I think fundamentally it's a lack of education. It's the feeling of not being equipped with the knowledge to make impactful decisions, and then uncertainty around those decisions made. Is it enough? Is it the right thing to do? Will it make a difference? How will I know if it makes a difference? And the problem is there's no one answer, and there's no one authority on the matter either. So it's a journey for all of us. And I think collaboration and information sharing is the key to this. We must, as an industry, put our egos aside, because we've got to work together. This isn't about one agency being better than another. We're all part of the change, and the problem is much bigger than all of us.
And also the other challenge is making the business case for getting the necessary resources. This transition, as Chantal just mentioned, requires education, but also the space to make better decisions, more informed decisions, which often takes more time and money. And you also need everyone's buy-in, specifically the full support of senior leadership, where you want sustainability to be placed at the heart of the actual business strategy, and you don't want it to be treated as a separate thing. And it comes back to, again, what Chantal's just mentioned, framing it as everyone's responsibility. We're looking at a challenge bigger than all of us, so collaboration here is definitely key.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that sounds pretty familiar to what we've definitely been looking at as well. And so for those people who are looking to increase that sustainable behavior, what are some kind of behaviors that they could maybe look at encouraging at their next events, whether those are hopefully in the future live events or whether they're hybrid in some sense?
Yeah, certainly. So the behaviors that we tend to follow and really focus on are quite simple. And we like to focus on these 6 sustainable behaviors suggested by the Change the Brief initiative that's been developed by Purpose Disruptors and Mindshare. And they include eating better, where we encourage more plant-based, locally sourced food at events, not just for our attendees, but also for our crew. Buying better, where event planners purchase items that are better quality and can be reused. Travel better, where the right planning is put in place to enable attendees to use public transport or car share and really make those better decisions. Using less power and energy during the production of the event, wasting less, especially when we think of food and resources in general. And also protect nature, where you as an event organizer or designer aim to forge a closer relationship with nature, bringing that natural world into your events through the content that you share, the space you create, or the activity that you plan.
Brilliant. And how can these potentially be adapted for a virtual or a hybrid event when maybe the ability to source sustainable food or sustainable waste disposal or things like that, when that's not an option, what sort of things can hybrid and virtual events look to do?
Well, I think there are many ways you could apply it in a sustainability to a virtual event. I think when thinking of giveaways being sent home, that's been a massive trend over the past year. You can encourage the buy better behaviour. So where the giveaways are needed and they're of a good quality, the whole journey is considered. So how it's transported, is that offset or is it by a sustainable source, by cycling couriers, for example? And how about its packaging? Is it compostable? Can it be reused, or getting rid of it entirely and swapping it out for an experience rather than a giveaway? And another way is through the messages or content promoted at the events. So the event might be virtual, but it's not to say that we can't bring in our nature into our content and activity, like Roxy referenced. And also, we're so complacent that virtual events may be the most sustainable option, and yes, they take away the carbon reduction in travel, but you've still got to supply the electricity for the equipment and for the computers and for the servers which are running the software that your event is on. So you need to consider the tech suppliers and whether they have green credentials, if they use green infrastructure or use renewable energy. So I think when we move into a hybrid world as well, which is where we're heading, we need to assess both of them differently. Even though it's a hybrid event as one, you've got to look at the virtual sustainability separately to the physical output. Both processes will have work streams that you need to identify, and they'll be different for each format. But the importance is to apply the reduce, reuse and recycle principles to each and every decision for maximum impact.
Brilliant. And you've both spoken there about the different kind of events that will need different sustainable actions. But I was just wondering, with your business, the circular event experience, you speak a lot about the circular economy. How does that work, and how can that be implemented into events? What does that look like essentially for someone who doesn't know much about it?
Sure. So we think that the circular economy, the principles that are included in that, they're part of the solution to the global climate emergency, because that's where products, services and systems are designed to maximize the value and really minimize waste. And I'll go into a bit more detail by covering the old linear economic model, which is take, make, dispose, where, for instance, when we think of our lifestyle and all the products that we use on a daily basis, for those to exist, raw natural resources are being taken from the ground, they're transformed into something, and at the end of the life, the product goes into a landfill or an incinerator. And then on the other hand, a circular process is more regenerative and aims to keep all products in a closed loop system where the value of all resources is maximized and waste is minimized. And this is where the products are produced. They're produced using raw materials, and when they're at the end of the life, they get transformed into something else, or they get reused or refurbished or repurposed. And this is something we can absolutely implement in events, especially when we build event sets from scratch. And I'll just pass over to Chantal to take you through these principles and how they look like a bit more, how they work in practice.
So the circular economy is a massive concept, and I'm a very practical person, so I can talk through how that might work in practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's all about applying the reduce, reuse, recycle model, which is what we keep saying, at every stage of the process. So starting with design, this has to work in a much more collaborative way, and we can already see great examples of that within our industry. There are designers working with production to reduce the creation of new or single-use products, and they're reusing materials already held in warehouses, and they're building up their knowledge of sustainable materials and the suppliers that use them, which is great progress. So it's looking at it as a feedback and development loop where design is done in a more circular manner alongside production. Absolutely. And then moving to the production phase, it's all about asking those same questions, but applying them to the electricity suppliers or food services, travel, everything you bring in. Is it necessary? Is your first place to start? Can you make, buy, use, serve, or produce less of anything? Or is there a sustainable alternative, be that solar power, cycling couriers, carpool initiatives, or experiences over giveaways? And obviously, this perfect circular event will see all of those materials go back into the events industry to keep the loop closed with no waste. But practically, we've got to accept that there are necessary leftovers from events. And for those items, we've just got to make ourselves accountable. And when we know that it's going to be an output and a byproduct of the event we're creating, and there's a risk it could go to landfill, we should be looking at second life streams, so charities, social enterprises and community groups. And then the last resort really should be recycling, with ideally nothing going to landfill.
Well, yeah, fingers crossed. That sounds like a perfect situation. So let's hope it gets built in more as we move towards a more sustainable future. I think that sounds like a great goal to have. And both of you speaking just now, you were really kind of passionate about this and really focused on this. Where does that drive come from? Where did you guys learn so much about sustainability and how that focused onto your business and onto your personal kind of beliefs about it?
Yeah, sure. So for me, this stems from pure selfishness. Obviously, once you know the facts, you know how bad it is. And, I want to survive on a livable planet. And I think that the way the climate stories are being told cover the planet needing saving or the planet being in danger and the fact that we need to save it. But we don't really. We need to save ourselves. We need to do this for ourselves. And what we need to understand is that the planet will be fine. It's gone through 5 other mass extinctions. So the issue of survival here is with us. We as humans need to worry. And I really like the way that David Attenborough's framed this, how saving the planet and saving ourselves is a communication challenge. And we need to really be careful on how we frame this. And this is partly the reason why we've set up Circular Event Experience and why the circular economy principles really spoke to us, because they're looking at to shift the conversation from that, the design stage, that initial stage where the sustainability lens applies from the very beginning. So yeah, that's my drive.
Brilliant. And of course, we all love a bit of David Attenborough, so he's a good person to look towards as well.
And a good person to listen to.
Absolutely.
And then for me, I think there's a bigger picture beyond ourselves. I think we're very much a part of the planet and not apart from it. And we always see ourselves as different from nature, but we wouldn't be here without it. And as humans, we've got a unique ability to affect enormous change. And we've taken so much from nature. I just think we have a responsibility to return it back to how it was.
Absolutely.
So I can't really explain my drive in any other way aside from the internal force to make change happen, and whether that's socially, economically or environmentally. Why wouldn't I want to work to make the world a better place without trying to be too cliched.
There's nothing wrong with being cliche. I think sometimes the cliche feelings are just as important as the unique ones. But yeah, I think, and I love talking about sustainability and personally trying to do a little bit of it myself, but it's one of those things where obviously you have to take what you can and focus on one problem. You can't focus on everything all at once, otherwise, like you said at the beginning, it's far too overwhelming. So if you guys were going to say to the events industry, here's the number one problem that we think is in the industry, this is what you need to focus on first, what do you think that would be to help kind of kickstart people into being more sustainable?
Sure. I think, as we've mentioned throughout, it's all about knowledge and education, and sustainability is very broad, and knowing what it all means and how to apply sustainable principles into the everyday job, no matter what function you work in or what level. That's a really huge challenge. So we just need to have a bespoke approach to every level. I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
The fun
Life goes on.
Yeah, the fun of working from home and living in London. And yeah, so we need that bespoke approach for every level and every function in the team. And it's all about making those better decisions, knowing which decisions no longer serve us and no longer serve a sustainable future. And also, I'd like to go further than that and also look a little bit deeper at the issues, because we need systemic change and we need better government policies that make it mandatory for venues or suppliers to behave and source their products and services in a more sustainable, circular way, where planet and people are at the heart of every business decision. So we need activity from the top, but also from the bottom, and I think that's where we need to get to.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. It's that meeting in the middle, I suppose, that when everyone's working towards it, it's hard not to support something as big as sustainability.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a huge ecosystem, and we all need to play our part at every stage and every decision.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today on Earth Day to talk about such an important topic, especially for today. Is there anything else that you guys want to add before we wrap up our interview, and anything you want to say to the events industry, or anything that you want to mention about sustainability before we go?
I think we're just both very excited to go back to not normal. I don't want to say that normal wasn't good. The industry was broken before, but yeah, just we're very excited to be speaking to many people. So if anyone wants to get in touch, we're always happy to have a conversation and bounce ideas. You know, we don't have those like circular principles. We don't have everything nailed down to a T, because everything is very new for us too. But yeah, we're always open for a chat. So just let us know.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks everyone for watching this interview of IBTM Meets.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.